Good morning, Yo-Yo's fam. It is Thursday, September 12th, 2024. So, listen, I am not good with stitching and all that other stuff, so I'm going to record this and then upload it to all my platforms. I had saw a TikTok, I want to say late last night, early this morning when I got up. And in the TikTok, they said that under the Trump administration, our economy was better. And the Harris administration, it is not. Well, let me correct something right now. It is not the Harris administration. It is the Biden administration. He is the president. She is the vice president. So let me go ahead and give y'all a little bit of a snippet of what government is and how that role as VP works. The role of the vice president is to is the president of the Senate. She's over the Senate, not the United States. She is the president over the Senate. She is to cast tie-breaking votes when it comes to the Senate. She is to be available for whatever the president wants her to do. However, her role is to be there just in case the president of the United States cannot fulfill his obligation as president. Okay? That is her role. She doesn't sign no bills into law. She doesn't go and negotiate. Well, she does negotiate some things if that's what the president decides for her to do. But she doesn't make or break things for the United States. So that's Joe Biden. Now, I also, when it comes to the economy, let's go to economics for a second. If you know how the economy works, the economy usually under one administration, the presidential, I'm going to use President Obama because Trump came in after former President Obama. Former President Obama was in office for 8 years. The first year, he set his tone on what he wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. His last 4 years, he set it in motion. He signed some things into law to put in effect, right? However, it did not start taking effect when it comes to the economy until his last year in office, right? So, maybe last year and a half. So, when former President Trump gets in office, he has an economy that is booming, that is growing, that is succeeding, right? That's because what former President Obama did, former President Trump reaped the benefits, right? From 16, 17, 18, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Once the pandemic hit, before the pandemic, y'all remember Trump signed a bill to help give tax cuts to the 1%, meaning his wealthy friends, meaning they wouldn't have to pay taxes. They wouldn't have to pay this on these things that they're good on, goods that are coming in or goods that are going out. They basically don't have to pay taxes for nothing per his tax cut. Well, what that did was, in the long run, put an effect on the American people, right? Because once he gave them a tax cut, that added trillions of dollars to our deficit, meaning we were in debt. Because they are not paying their share of taxes. We can only pay so much of taxes, right? So that added to our debt. Then the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic hit, former President Trump decided it was a hoax. He didn't want to shut the economy down. He didn't want to do anything because he didn't believe it was true. Whereas other countries, New Zealand, Italy, Spain, Europe, all of Asia, Australia, those countries were shutting down. So they were shutting down, and they were able to contain it to where they were able to open up their countries slowly, like real slowly. they didn't go against, the people didn't go against their elective officials saying this is stupid. They just sat their little raggedy tails home for, I think, China was out for like 4 weeks. But in that time, they put things in place to where when the children were able to go back to school the next school year, they had masks, they had a cleaning station, they had all these things. When people went back to work, they still had to wear masks, they still had to do these things, right? Whereas in the United States, he waited to the end of March, beginning of April to close things down. By that time, the virus, right, was running rapid throughout the United States. So not only did he have to shut down, right, he had to shut down for longer times because we could not contain the virus because the virus was out of control. We were still allowing flights to come. I mean, well, they stopped travel, kind of. Right? And then they didn't have PPE for our medical professionals. So not only were they treating people with COVID, they were catching COVID. And it was like, I get better, but I already passed it on to my neighbor. So now my neighbor is sick. So now I'm back in here. And it was just a cycle, right? It was just a cycle. So when we decided to open up, that was when the presidential election was coming. And Trump wanted to open up the kids back in school, things like that. However, COVID was still at a high because he didn't believe in vaccine. He believed in drinking bleach and taking UV rays into your body. I don't know. That was dumb. But that's what he wanted, right? Well, as you know, I'm sorry, people. When you are closed down and you're businesses are losing, can't pay their rent on the buildings that they had because of the economy. I mean, because they're closed down and they're not bringing in income, but they still have to pay some of their employees, or their employees were getting unemployment. So Congress, not Trump, Congress decided to give us what's called the little PPE loan, the $1,200. Now, when you got that first $1,200, right? Everybody in the United States got a check for $1,200 if you paid taxes. When you got that check added on to our deficit, right? Because that was money that they didn't have to spend, but it wanted to send some relief to Americans. And then turned around and sent another $1,200, which added to our deficit because we weren't going back to work, right? And then, not only that, people weren't able to pay their rent. So landlords was accruing that loss of mortgage companies, if you were in a house or renting in a house or whatever, was getting that, was accruing that debt. So, because they were out of work, right? And 9 times out of 10, people did not have 6 months of rent or mortgage stacked up in their bank, right? Because the majority of Americans work paycheck to paycheck. However, I left my daggone cup at daggone. Oh, anyway, just realized I left my stuff at home. So that added to the deficit and us, those two $1,200 checks. You add up all that money that went out that Trump did not want. He fought against it, but Congress, that's the House and the Senate, decided we have to help these people some type of way. And he held it up because he wanted to sign the check. So they get him a little thing. He signed one check and then he printed it out. They printed out on all the other checks, right? And then the economy started opening up around election time. Like, kids were going back to school if you chose to send your child back to school. It wasn't like mandatory or whatever, but if you chose to, they could go back to school. But majority of people kept their children home because COVID was still out there. That right there, when 2020, when the election came, Joe Biden was elected. He was a president-elect. Now, by this time, the economy was shot, right? The economy was out of there because the tax cut Trump gave to the rich, and then the pandemic. So when Biden gets in office, right, the last year of Trump's presidency, the first year of Biden's presidency, the economy shifted, right? And so inflation happened. One, because we had goods, as they call it, that was sitting in the middle of the ocean that couldn't come into the port because of COVID. They had to pay on that, right? So all of that it messed up our economy and shifted us to where inflation happened. And they had to raise some interest rate to kind of balance us out. That's because of the tax cuts and COVID. So when President Biden gets in office, we got the vaccines. He made it safe to where it was able to go back to work some places, but you still had businesses that were closed down because they'd rather pay you to stay home and work from home than go back in the office, because that rent that they was paying was too high, maybe. And so it was feasible for them to just keep you at home. Some jobs, not all. So that's how that economy works. And as far as groceries, the presidency does not have anything to do with grocery stores. The CEOs of the grocery stores have everything to do with the prices in the grocery stores. Believe you me, they are not getting stuff at a higher rate from farmers because they don't want to pay the farmers. So they are hiking prices to profit them. And one of the CEOs, I want to say it was from, I saw it like last week. He was before the Senate. Anyway, I can't think of his name, where he stated that, yes, they jacked up the prices. They knew the price. They wanted to increase the prices because they wanted to make a profit off of that pandemic. I can't think of his name, but I will come back and tell you his name because I got to look it back up. So they were making a profit because they knew they can off of us knowing we needed groceries, and they needed to make a profit off of the pandemic, off of the backs of Americans. So that's a little lesson for today for those who feel that Biden messed up our economy, or VP Harris messed up our economy, which she has nothing to do with making laws or putting things in them. Anyway, you all have a great and blessed day. I'm going to the store, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.